9-game, that's right, yeah, 9-game NBA slate, all the important news, some of which is just breaking as we speak. I'm Chris Spags, joined by the returning from vacation, I'm sure bronzed and glistening right now, Fast Eddie Fear. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we're in a new year. It's a new start for all of us. So I mean, that's all I can ask for. But my resolution is to win more at DFS this year, Eddie. So I think that's what we have to try to achieve.
Well, my resolution is to help everyone else win more at DFS, so we're looking good there.
All right.
Simpatico.
Everybody besides me, you mean?
No, you too. You count. I'm not specifically excluding you. You're welcome to benefit from my largesse. Let us go.
That's fair. And there is a lot of largesse, of course, to come across.
Well, I'm
We are
on a
presented by
diet
Thrive
after
Fantasy,
after
by
the
the
new
way, in
year.
case you have forgotten that it is a new year. We don't expect you to remember all of our presenting sponsors, but Thrive Fantasy is the new DFS app where players draft a lineup built prop bets of only top-tier athletes. You pick 10 props out of the 20, and the less probable a prop is to occur, the more points it's worth, and therein lies the game theory. So click the link we're going to drop in the chat now. We've talked a lot about overlays and deposit bonuses and all that in recent weeks, and Thrive is one that is offering all of those for you. So click that link. You get $10 on a $10 deposit, $20 for $100, or $50 for $200 or more, and that's fast release. You get it right away. So go support the show, download Thrive, join it, deposit now. Let's hit a quick Thrive prop, Eddie, before we go to the important news. Karl Anthony Towns, a guy who's going to be popular tonight as a contrarian play. I guess that was kind of a contrarian way to say that. Karl Anthony Towns, over under 33.5 points and rebounds, and it's equal shading on this one. What would you pick for him?
Points and rebounds. Yeah, that's a pretty good line. I will. I am concerned about the matchup, but I will hesitantly take the over there. The absence of all those other players, the coach's willingness, even in not necessarily a favorable game script, to give Towns an excessive amount of time. The combination of those things, I will look at him to grind his way into those statistics. So I will take the over there. Very close for me, but I will go with the over.
Yeah, so I have Towns projected for 21.7 points and 12.3 boards, so that would put us at 34. That Thrive prop line is about as close as it can get for this particular one. Some of them aren't quite that difficult, though, but I'll take the over as well. Make sure to go to Thrive now, download the app, get those deposit bonuses. Click the link in YouTube right now. It's bit.ly/awesomeo. Go on there now. Eddie, let's talk about a former teammate of Towns, Jimmy Butler. He is just out now, according to allegedly an illness. We'll say for now. Who knows with Jimmy? But that's what they're saying in Phoenix. How are you adjusting for Butler being out? Who's getting the bump up for you?
General soreness. Yeah, the first two most obvious guys are Simmons and Embiid, of course. I think it's natural to have some concern about Embiid. I'm fairly certain he'll play. Again, yesterday he was billed as being out for rest and sort of some knee soreness, and then wasn't out and got in there and played a full 35 minutes, I want to say. So I would have some concern if I'm playing Embiid against a pretty poor Phoenix team that he is yanked a little earlier than he might be otherwise on the road in a back-to-back and potentially not 100%, but that's not enough to take away from me now having him as one of my top 3 overall plays, my top overall center. This is the second time and final time this year that these two opposite conference P teams will get together and play, and you saw about what you expected that first game with a pretty non-effective Jimmy Butler. Had some number of fantasy points in the teens or under 20 in that game, but you got about 50 out of Simmons and about 60 out of Embiid. I think a little less than 50. I think I got 48 and 62 or something. And that's not far from what I would look at as projections in the situations now with them out. So those two guys now become pretty exceptional spends. They're a little site dependent. I've been having running. I'm resubmitting my rankings now, taking into account those changes, and I've had running lineups on Yahoo and FanDuel and DraftKings all day, which I'm tinkering with as news comes out. And for example, on DraftKings, Ben Simmons just took my Paul George spot, who was a pretty big fan of it. 8,900, or I'm sorry, 9,200 was Paul George. Simmons $300 less at 8,900. But at that point against Phoenix, without Butler there, I do expect those two guys to do the heavy lifting, and I'm a fan of getting at least one of them into, if you're building a single lineup, I'm a fan of trying to get one of them in there. It ends up being a little site dependent as far as how they're priced and which positionally is better. But then beyond that, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they've said who's starting yet. but I wouldn't be surprised if you ended up getting Furkan getting the start here again. I would probably, if that news... It depends when that news comes out. If the news comes out in 3 minutes that Furkan Korkmaz isn't going to get the start, then I would probably rather play, for example, TJ McConnell, because so much of the ownership will flow onto Korkmaz. But at this moment of the value guys to look at on this team, he would be the guy I would be first and most inclined towards. So it's one of those things where if that news comes out at 6:52 or 6:48, then I would just play Furkan. If that news comes out now, then if I was looking to go to, a tournament guy on that lineup, I would probably play TJ McConnell before him. But there's some room for a lot of guys in a superlative matchup. You can run Wilson Chandler out there at $3,800. What's really interesting about trying to get those guys in is there are a lot of really exceptional value plays today that you have to beat up on. And again, this is site dependent, but Josh Okogie, who I have down for 39 minutes right now and is just going to play metric amounts of time. Well, it probably won't be metrics amount of time. It'll be standard English system minutes and seconds, but it'll play lots of time. And Terry Rozier, certain sites way too cheap. Tomas Satoransky in best possible matchup and actually playing point guard. Devontae Graham makes a lot of sense. Hernan Gomez again. There's just lots of very, very good value today. So you shouldn't go overly crazy, trying to make TJ McConnell or Furkan Korkmaz work. But they'll still be fine tournament plays, and they carry a little bit of extra upside just in case this game still turns into a blowout. Maybe you're getting, a really appreciable set of minutes here. But there's a real chance that those minutes flow around to everyone from Landry Shamet's going to take some of that time and could pick up the start himself. So none of those guys are, I need to get the value in there, but I am pretty excited about getting one of those two studs in there.
And we'd have some decent values on the Sun side. Booker jumped out to me as a guy who I projected pretty well at his price on DraftKings at least, and Ayton as well. Which guys are you the most comfortable running it back with for the Sixers and the Suns?
Yeah, if I'm running it back there again, Booker, the obvious choice, and it matches up well for him. Taking Butler out of there makes the defensive situation even a little bit easier for him. So certainly the first guy I would look to would be Booker, then Warren, as in the case most days when you're looking at this team. I would have concern running Ayton out there. It is a real foul issue. He is someone with a propensity to pick up a lot of fouls, and Joel Embiid, I haven't looked at the stat recently, but certainly towards the top of guys who tend to accrue fouls against opposing players. I would rather play Rashawn Holmes, revenge, one of many revenge guys in this matchup, at a cheaper price than play DeAndre Ayton, who I suspect could see some foul trouble. And that is point of fact, but we actually saw the first time they played, you only got 25 minutes or so out of Ayton because of the fact that he was limited due to, I think he had 4 or 5 fouls in that time.
Let's talk about some other bigs. Obviously, there are two big ones, no pun intended. People are talking about all day today. Thomas Bryant, Willie Hernan Gomez. They're both pretty affordably priced, at least on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, it's a different story, at least for Bryant. Yep. What are you doing with those two guys tonight? Are you comfortable with playing them? They have a pretty good per minute average, but there's always some risk, I guess.
Yeah, for Sweet Dick Willie too. There's glad to get him back in there so I can get that nickname back in usage. One of many. The first Sweet Dick Willie was Willie Peralta back when they managed to make me do baseball shows, but Hernan Gomez quickly picked up the mantle and has run with it. Between those two, well, on FanDuel, they're both wicked priced up. I think you have 6,600 for Bryant and 55, I think, is the number for Hernan Gomez, which you have to wonder how he ever justified getting up to that salary with the limited time he had been seeing. So I'll talk about them one by one. Bryant is probably default the better play pretty significantly. If in some place you're looking at one or the other, you would play Bryant, although almost everywhere you are spending every site, 3 main sites, you're spending a bit more on Yahoo. So FanDuel, it's whatever it is, 66 for Bryant and 53 for Willie. DK, those are 47 and 38. And Yahoo, it's like 17 and 10, I want to say. So everywhere you're spending more, and that is the case. They are trying to develop him ever since he had, his perfect from the field game and that triple overtime game. They've put more time on him, and we can reasonably expect him to see, like I have him projected for 32 minutes tonight, and the matchup is superlative. Nothing wrong, really, with Willie Hernan Gomez's matchup, but it's not nearly as good. And I have concerns about Hernangomez's minutes. Now, I still like him a lot on Yahoo and a lot on DraftKings. Feel free to go elsewhere on FanDuel. I don't think that's necessary. At that point, you're spending, like, play DeAndre Jordan across the ball, who's too cheap on FanDuel, where he's 65 or 67 or something in a tremendous spot. But Hernangomez is challenged defensively. Actually doesn't play that differently from, not as good of a rebounder, but doesn't play that differently from his old teammate, Enes Kanter. But I certainly think there's a much greater chance that you see Guillermo yanked for defensive reasons. And the coaches basically said as much when he was talking about his opportunity in the start. He's like, well, we're going to need him to get out there, and we're going to need him to do it on both sides of the court, and we need him to protect the rim. And like, if this goes badly, he'll get yanked. I actually remember once earlier in the year, I think Hernangomez started exactly one game previously, and I'm pretty sure it was the Pelicans. And in the lead up to that show, in my show, I went, he's going to start this game. I don't think he's going to play through the whole game. Either foul trouble or just being unable to handle at the time Anthony Davis is going to get him yanked. And he did get yanked. They put Biyombo in to start the second half. Now, that's not as likely with, DeAndre Jordan out there. I mean, there's still rim protection issues with Dennis Smith Jr. and Doncic crashing in and other things. So he still could get pulled. I don't think it's nearly as likely. But this team has a lot of people they will play at center, from him to the aforementioned Biyombo to Frank Kaminsky, will play anywhere from 8 to 20 minutes in this game, depending on how well he does, to even Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. They've run super small at center before, and if they don't get punished for doing so, you could see something like that here. So I really like Hernangomez. He's better than a point per minute player. You could see as many as 28 or 30 minutes here, and he'll absolutely demolish those minimum prices on Yahoo and DraftKings. But there's much more risk there. Where he's still tolerably priced in the 4,700 on DK, and he's power forward eligible. Bryant probably the stronger player, and probably worth the $900 or so you're spending there. You could make the argument on Yahoo, where it's a difference between 10 and I think 17, that probably Hernangomez is still the better play. And on FanDuel, I just really wouldn't play either of them until I was some number of lineups in.
So you have all these options now in front of you, a lot of value opening up, as we talked about. I guess for all the various sites, I don't know how you want to approach this, but which guys would you be trying to lock in the beginning part of forming a lineup?
Well, Brad Beal makes a lot of sense. So, again, this is I frequently allude to the game where Washington played Atlanta earlier in the year, and I was talking about even on a 10-game slate, I was fine for all these various reasons, stacking the shit out of guys from that game. And again, the prices have come up a little bit now, and it's not quite as advantageous a situation, but it's still certainly the game we want to get the most on top of. John Wall played in one of those games, and one of them he didn't. In the game Wall played, Beal only had 50 or so. In the game he didn't, he had about 60. I would project him for over 50 again tonight. The absence of Kent Bazemore, who was really, without Bazemore and Prince, those were the vaguely competent wing defenders on this team to begin with. So he really should get nearly everything he wants. Again, the absence of Wall and some of the other players, and the location. Well, I guess my point being that this game could very possibly stay close as well, and they have no issue, even when Wall was around, playing Bradley Beal 42, 45 minutes. So FanDuel obviously doesn't feel as great. $9,800, and there's a lot of other quality value options like Josh Okogie and D'Angelo Russell at $7,000 is probably a better point per dollar play, but in cash and just raw points, Brad Beal there is still a tremendous play, and he's still just underpriced on DraftKings and Yahoo, where he's 8,630 something. I can't remember what that number is, but I think 39 on Yahoo is still too cheap for a guy who I project for around 50 tonight. So that would be one of the first guys in. Across the ball, John Collins is just a beast, and there's certainly nothing in this matchup that should stop him from doing so. He was very good in the games previously against Washington, so on paper, expectancy. Again, the prices aren't that great. Probably worse priced on DK, where he's 82. 84 on FanDuel is better than that, and Yahoo only 33 is a fine number we can really expect him to get on top of. Another shout-out for Embiid and Simmons at this point, who just profile brilliantly against obviously a really poor team, and minus Butler and being on the road, a greater chance this game stays close and they can really kick ass. Terry Rozier, Yahoo, $10 should be one of your first guys in. DK, 5,300. You can live without. FanDuel, 4,300. That's again pretty exceptional. 800 over the cap versus 2,300. And again, cap space, what you're really worried about spending. Again, a lot of guys are site dependent. Bembry is $10 on Yahoo. I really like him in this matchup. Even though he isn't getting the start, he's getting more of that usage off the bench. They're getting him back to that 30-minute role. And again, the matchup is exceptional. $10 on Yahoo. I think he's a tremendous buy. DK still reasonable in the low fours, and FanDuel is like 55 at that point. I'm just fine letting him go. Trying to think of other guys I've looked at a lot today. I have some interest in James Johnson as a value play on DK and Yahoo, where he's $3,910. He was getting back towards his 30 minutes a night role where he got 25 and 29 each the last couple games. Not a game I want to target a lot of. Miami and Cleveland, one of the three super slow games this evening. But especially Yahoo, where he's the minimum and can pick up all the steals and blocks at a pretty nominal ownership. It's tough figuring out what to do with all the $10 guys on Yahoo, because you have, again, James Johnson I'm talking about makes sense in tournaments, but you have Dennis Smith Jr. and Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham and DeAndre Bembry and Willie Hernan-Gomez, all at the absolute minimum, where the minimum is more relevant than the minimum on FanDuel or DraftKings due to what a small proportion. Dennis Smith Jr. also on Yahoo is the minimum for fun. So tough to know how to dictate those spots. So Simmons or Beal, single entry, GPP on DK. I probably go Simmons at this point for lower ownership. And DK being scoring that is pretty advantageous for him for the real chance to pick up the triple double. So your ownership should be a little bit better there, but I still have to take Beal for more raw points.
Also, just if you are a premium member, Osmo is updating his rankings. The Osmo elves are in the background right now, updating all of his stuff with all the breaking news coming through. So one just came through a minute ago. So if you want to check that out, go do that now. If you haven't joined Osmo.com yet, now's a good time to do it. Use the promo code Live Before Lock. It's still good, even though it's a new year. You get that 1 week free of all the rankings from Osmo, which people have been working. Eddie, you missed out on this. The people worked on reverse engineering Osmo's rankings into making projections out of them, and apparently have been finding some success from it. So a good reason to join Premium now, if there were one. Use that promo code Live Before Lock. You get the rankings and ownership projections, which we'll talk more about in about 10 minutes. We'll take you through the top guys and see how Daddy feels about it now that he's back on our fine American shores. What else? What other games are you looking at, Eddie, that you're finding to be a little underowned or perhaps a little underrecognized by the various touts in the industry?
Let me pop through some of my notes and see there. When someone gets a second, can you tell me if my rankings are updated? I've tried to submit them twice, and the remote thing is giving me a bit of a pain in the ass there. Satoransky is another guy. It ends up being, again, site and price dependent, but $15 on Yahoo. And I want to say 45 on DK. Is that the other? I want to make sure I get this right. 46 on DK. Makes a lot of sense again in the dream matchup, and last time managed to get there. But now having Wall out, you're now looking at ridiculous amounts of minutes, and having Austin Rivers not there and actually handling the ball more makes still a ton of sense. On FanDuel, especially a couple of the Lakers guys. Again, not a matchup we're super excited about, though the Thunder do keep up a decent pace. Actually, I think first game this year between the Lakers and the Thunder. But additionally, Lonzo getting what should be obviously a full and complete load of minutes here, and Kuzma. Both those guys are just too cheap on FanDuel. So I certainly think that those guys, site-specific to FanDuel, are a couple guys that I have some interest in. I want to talk for a minute about the other Celtics. I think a lot of people will, jump on Rozier. That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people will also look at Smart, who's done better in the couple games without Kyrie and just sees greater ball handling responsibilities and just a greater role with the team. And it's priced at 4 something everywhere. I think Smart. You're looking at less ownership there, but I don't think it's insane to have a share in tournaments of Gordon Hayward, who again has looked just dreadful, but has some sort of upside against a really undermanned Timberwolves team. And I'm fairly certain someone can check me on this, but the random 56 or whatever fantasy point game Hayward had did come against the Timberwolves, so feeling for another reason to go there. But Marcus Morris and Jason Tatum especially, I think he's 25 on Yahoo. There's a lot of great games and a lot of great plays, but I have a feeling the non-Terry Rozier Celtics, and what's a matchup I really like, will go a little bit under-owned here, especially relative to just across the ball. I think we're going to see a ton of Okogie and Tyus Jones certain place, although his prices come up, and Wiggins and Towns. I'm a little more excited about playing the Celtics at home against the Timberwolves than playing the Timberwolves against the Celtics. Like, I would much rather play Embiid than Towns at this point. I don't even have those two terribly close. Horford has generally done a pretty good job. Now, his minutes are going to be limited, so he's only going to get 60% of the Towns time, and certainly there's still a big upside for Towns here, and he's priced extra cheap on DK, so I don't have an issue with anyone playing Karl Anthony Towns, but I expect the ownership to be a little higher than I'd like it to be, so I'm a little more inclined to look other places. Trying to think if there's anyone in the three shit games I'm super interested in. Talking about centers, Vooch certainly makes sense for me in a tournament. He's expensive as all hell, and that game is awful. I mean, the Bulls and the Magic have played twice this year already. One of those games was 90 to 80. The other was like 93 to 85. I mean, two really scummy games, but I think Vooch had like 50 and 60 in those two games. So you're going to get 5% Vooch in a situation he clearly can put up an upside. So again, I mentioned Paul George already. First time these two teams have got together, but he's 9,200 on DK. That's well too inexpensive for what I expect out of him. At this point, I would have swapped him probably for Simmons, who I have to slightly prefer, but that price is just still way too advantageous. I still like Etuan Moore where you can get him. I like the spot for him a lot with some of the guys missing on the Nets, and he's still like 4,300, and they're back to giving him 30x minutes, and he's so cheap he's kind of droppable on FanDuel, but still carries like a 35-point upside. So Etuan Moore, a fun tournament piece. I don't think people will own quite as much as he should be owned. I don't know. There's some guys.
There are some guys. There you go. We having some questions in the premium Slack right now from people. You mentioned Josh Okogie real fast. Kwame Nation wants to know, how are you feeling about Okogie versus Carroll versus DeMar Carroll for DK cash?
Yeah, I would probably go with Okogie, although it's really close. Simply for what I expect for minutes. I really think Josh Okogie plays. I have him right now at 38.7 minutes. That's just a metric amount of time for a guy that cheap. I think Carroll probably plays 29 or 30, and I have no issue with spending. Again, he's almost a DK-specific play. But at 4K, that's fine. But in cash, I'm probably just playing what I think has to be just a massive amount of time for Okogie. If you look at this Wolves rotation and then you get rid of Roseanne Teague and Covington, they really run a next man up sort of thing there, and he should get a full allotment of time. So I got to go with Okogie for cash. For tournaments, it's close for me there. I'd probably slightly prefer Carroll, but I'd be absolutely fine with either one.
It seems like there's some risk to Carroll still. Like if Kurucs gets hot, I mean, he has not been hot the last few games.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would kind of cut into Carroll's minutes enough where maybe you're not seeing the upside.
Certainly. Yeah, and it's worth pointing out if you look at Kurucs splits, again, we're looking at very limited time here, so I would not overstate this, but he has been remarkably successful at home. If you look at his home games versus away games, I have FanDuel up right now, so I'll... here's just going backwards in time. Road game, 3 fantasy points. Road game, 10 fantasy points. Home game, 41. Home game, 32. Home game, 33. Road game, 19. Like, he's played very well in the Barclays Center. So I don't know how much that matters. That's probably just statistical noise. And again, his prices come up enough. Although he's still pretty cheap on Yahoo, I still think you could do that. I don't want him really at 4,800 on FanDuel, but I do agree with your analysis that my biggest concern with playing DeMar Carroll would be that Kurucs gets a full load of time.
Yeah, just some risk there to note if you are playing Carroll and cash. Jay Kelly 13 asking in the premium Slack, you mentioned Paul George. Do you think PG 13's upside is a little limited due to Ingram's defense? I don't have a concern about that. George is one of my top projected guys. Osmo loves him too. So I'm very team PG 13. But how are you feeling about that? The defense of Brandon Ingram, which is not a sentence I think people say too often.
Yeah, I am not concerned with it. Ingram is not someone I expect to be able to guard Paul George exceptionally well. Ingram has a very good set of defensive skills against certain guys. I don't think they actually will apply very well to Paul George based on what I've seen, just being guys who are significantly larger than him. So one of the reasons that you have Ingram even at his size playing well at like the 2 and the 3 is that guys down at the 4 can just sort of shove him around, and I would put Paul George on that list. So not overly concerned there. It doesn't actually factor into my calculus really at all there. FanDuel small forward is not particularly brilliant. Again, I like Etwan Moore as a punt. There's other guys in the middle where either Josh Richardson or Justice Winslow. Winslow had 50 against these Cavs just a week ago. You can pay that price, but there's no one at small forward I really love. So 10,000 on FanDuel doesn't bother me for Paul George, especially with 3 for a steal and his ability to pick up 7. Yeah, I like Paul George quite a bit, and Brandon Ingram wouldn't affect my take there much.
Related question from Donabede. My status in the premium Slack, Brad Beal or Paul George for FanDuel cash if you could only fit one.
Brad Beal. That's I mean, more things have to go wrong for that not to work out.
Yep, I would agree there.
For tournaments, that's a very close question. But for cash, I'll just take Brad Beal a few more raw points. I'm like 4 or 5 points higher.
It's about the halfway mark. So by the way, make sure to like this video. Eddie's back. If you're not liking the video with Eddie back, then what have you guys been complaining about for the last few days? So just back your words up with your actions.
People complain like the video when I was gone? Oh.
People were talking about you. I mean, they quickly moved on and were like, "Oh, everybody else is great." I'm sure that was exactly their exact thoughts, and they didn't throw a tantrum and run away from their screen. But no, there was some malaise or some sadness rather in the chat, some melancholy rather that you weren't here. So people love you.
Oh.
Aw. Let's go through ownership. Let's play a little mid-show Daddy Likes. At the halfway mark of the shows, we go through ownership projections, which you can find with promo code LIEBEFORELOCK on Osmo.com. You get them all for free for 1 week, 7 days of access to get all of the information that we discuss on the show. Ownership projections on DK. Let's talk about the top 5 guys, Eddie, and whether you like them or not. First guy up, is it Big Dick Willie? Sweet Dick Willie. Sorry, I don't want to misquote your dick nicknames. Willie Hernangomez, 46% on DK. What does Daddy feel about that?
Yeah, it's do the right thing, man. Everyone knows why they call him Sweet Dick Willie. 46%. I probably I still like him as a play, but I guess Daddy doesn't like that. That is high enough of a number for a guy I already elucidated at length the number of ways that can go wrong. I probably would want to come in on under that number. So I would, rather find a way to come up with $900 for Thomas Bryant, or you can, pivot to James Johnson for $100 more at the same position, or play some of the other values. So, I'm gonna determine Daddy doesn't like to mean I would come in under that, and so Daddy doesn't like that. I would play less than 46%. Hernangomez, just because, again, reading the coach's comments, there's just a chance he gets yanked. And again, it happened earlier this year. Now, I don't think it's as likely as it was in that game when I said it ahead of time, but I would not be shocked to just see, like, hey, DeAndre Jordan is doing well and he can't rebound over him, and they go to Biyombo, or the game just gets a little smaller and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist gets in there, and I think the most likely outcome is he gets minutes into the 20s and gives you, 28, 30 fantasy points, and that feels pretty good. So I like it as a play, but 46% Daddy doesn't like. I'll look somewhere else.
Another guy has been rolling recently who is the sweetness of his dick is still in question. Thomas Bryant, 45% projected ownership on DK. How are you feeling about him?
What was his number?
45%. So it's 1% lower than me.
So yeah, that's not significantly different. Yeah. I feel better about that. So I guess we'll go with Daddy like on that one. Again, that's obviously quite a number. I wouldn't have a problem being slightly over that number. While he is a somewhat challenging player, you're not going to get a much better matchup for a guy. Clearly, a guy who can put up some big doubles, and if they're committing to him again and trying to get him time, which they didn't do for the largest part of the year, it's hard not to like him. He got 30 and 36 minutes each of the last 2 games. Any amount of time near that against Atlanta should be a smash spot. So I will conversely say Daddy likes Thomas Bryant.
Let's go to number 3 on the list on DK, Bradley Beal, guy we talked about a little already, 31% projected ownership. Daddy like it or not?
Yeah, I love it. If he's at 31%, I'm just celebrating my victory over. I'm shocked if he doesn't get 40 here. You need something really hooey to happen. So with his number being, I think, again, he's 86. I'm going to double check just in case I got that wrong. But I mean, yeah, 86 is simply too inexpensive for Brad Beal. And I'd be worried if he's 45, 50, 60% owned, but he's far less likely to fail than the 2 guys we just talked about, who are going to be apparently 13 to 17% higher owned. So yeah, if he's going to be owned 30, 35%, then yeah, I'd over the field that, and just he's not going to get the rare 100% tag, but huge fan of Brad Beal. So Daddy likes that a lot at 31%.
How about Paul George coming at number 4, 26%?
Hey, way to go, people. Okay. 26. That's about right. But I'll still go with Daddy likes. The matchup with a LeBron-less, especially Lakers team. How exceptional he's been recently. The amount you're saying, I mean, it's hard to discuss him without taking him as a point of reference to Russell Westbrook, but he's $2,000 on the nose cheaper on FanDuel, $2,500 cheaper on DK, and has been nearly as productive recently. Yeah, Daddy likes Paul George quite a bit at that number. Rankings not updated.
And rounding out the top 5, Tomas Satoransky at 24%.
You're shitting me. I'm trying to figure out why my rankings aren't updated. I'm pretty nice. Satoransky, you said 24%. Yeah, Daddy likes that too. Managed to in that first Hawks game. I was big talking him down, but he managed to pick up all the steals and blocks and shot 5 of 7 from the field, and all kinds of extra usage showed up for him in that game. But now should actually be taking appreciable shots, and the minutes are guaranteed, and playing more actual point guard, and the combination of those things, I still like Sato quite a bit. So again, it is site dependent, but certainly DK and Yahoo prices, Daddy likes.
Let me just point out a couple random guys, and let's see how you feel about them. Joel Embiid, 17%.
Yeah, that's about right, but I'll still go with Daddy likes. I'd want to get over the field on that one. Again, it is a smash spot against Phoenix, and being on the road, sans Jimmy Butler, you like the chance of that game staying close a little bit. And much like Anthony Davis, I don't know what you're about to tell me the number on Anthony Davis is, but whatever it is, it's going to be, I expect, in the teens. And I really want to get on top of that. He's still my highest scoring guy of the day. I have him projected for 69, which is nice, but also my highest score of the day. It's just a superlative matchup for him, and again, he rogered everyone pretty strong on New Year's Eve. But me like.
He's at 21%, so a little bit higher than teens, but still pretty low relative to the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I'd want to get me some of that.
Got a question in the premium Slack. Haven't heard much about Monk and Graham from Charlotte. Graham expected to start, or actually is confirmed to start. Yep. How do you feel about Monk and Graham today, filling in for Jeremy Lamb?
I've had a couple people ask me about this, and they're like, Graham's going to start, but he's going to be more popular. Should I play Monk? He's got a better upside. I don't think Monk has a better upside. Monk is a flashier player. Monk is a better scorer. But I'll do this right now. I just did update on the rankings again. If they don't go, I don't know why that would have happened, but it said they went again. So check the rankings again if you'd like. But again, that's my curated player pool there, saying how I rank everyone cash and tournaments, and just a full list of the players I would have in tournaments. So I've put that in again, available only for Awesemo members. See, Daddy, I'm plugging. But Graham is roughly here. Let me try. We'll try Devontae. I'm on the Stat Muse, which is a fine tool. Let's go Devontae Graham, DraftKings points per minute in his career, and I bet he's going to be a little under 1. 0.9. Okay, now let me look at Malik Monk, DraftKings points per minute in his career, and he is 0.9. Yeah, they're very similar players as far as scoring capacity, and Monk got the time yesterday and got the start in the second half. Not yesterday, but in the previous game, rather the day before yesterday. Although it is worth pointing out, as I allude to that, the Pistons and the 76ers are the only two teams on a back-to-back today, and no one is on a back-to-back tomorrow. So some concern, obviously, we've alluded to it when talking about the 76ers on their back-to-back, but if you were looking for another reason not to play the Pistons, well, if I was going to play a Piston, I would play Blake and not Andre. If you're looking to take a piece of that game for some reason, Blake is in a much better spot than Andre to me. But yeah, I would play Devontae Graham. I think Devontae Graham I have projected for 8 more minutes, and they're pretty similar players, and I don't think either of them will be that highly owned. So I think it is being too cute and overthinking. I don't think Monk's role changes much. Maybe it does. I could be getting it wrong on my guess here, but I think he does basically what he's been doing, and you have Graham slide in for Lamb. So Graham for me amongst those two, and I do like both of them, whether it's FanDuel, I'm a little more happy to play Okogie at the shooting guard position because that way I can still play Rozier and still play one pay-up point guard option. Right now I think my FanDuel lineup has Rozier and Lonzo in it last iteration. But I'm fine with Graham at 34 on DK and 10 on Yahoo. I think those numbers are just fine, although I would prefer $10, some of the other 10s on Yahoo certainly over him.
Let's go through the premium Slack questions. Thoughts on John Collins? You talked a little bit about him up top, but TAC 1998 is asking, so give us your John Collins thoughts on a pretty good spot versus Washington.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think he's your second cash play from that game after Brad Beal. He is worst on DraftKings, if you will, where he's only, say, $400 less than Brad Beal. If you want to look at, point comparison on FanDuel, he is $1,400 less. On Yahoo, he's 33 versus 39. A bit more of a cashy play because he's not super ceiling guy frequently, but again, it's just an ideal environment against a Washington team that is very allergic to rebounding. So I like him quite a bit. Certainly not a must in there, but I haven't projected for about 44 fantasy points, so that feels just fine at his price.
In DK Cash, who do you think we get away from between Tyus, Satoransky, and Graham?
If I was forced to get away from one of those guys, I think it's going to be Tyus based on the prices, but I want to make sure I have them all right. Again, I'm looking at 3 sites, and I don't want to speak out of school. Yeah, so Tyus at 56, Satoransky at 46, and Graham at 34. I actually have Satoransky projected for more raw points than Tyus straight out, even with Tyus with that many minutes. The matchup with Boston is a real thing for me. And it's enough that I'll go for, it's literally going from Satoransky, who has one of the best 2 or 3 matchups you can have, to one of the worst 2 or 3 matchups you can have for Tyus, and you're spending an extra $1,000. For me, I would be very ambivalent between Graham, who I think is in less superlative of a spot, certainly. Dallas actually been reasonably tight at the 1 and the 2 relative to how good I thought they would be. But certainly Sato would be my favorite of those 3 guys. And then I'll probably save $2,000 and play Graham and hope he randomly grabs me 30, as opposed to playing Tyus and hoping he randomly grabs me 30.
Also pretty sure we just set a viewership high. So, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. I think we're around 1,600. I don't know if we actually got 1,600, but make sure to hit that like button while we're setting records and stuff and barely noticing, because that's helped us out quite a bit with all of our YouTube things. And we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, but like the videos too.
Yeah, we're back, baby.
We are back. We are back in full steam for 2019. I'm going to get the year right every time. I'm not going to say 2018 once, because that's how we differentiate.
I'm going to sign so many checks 2018. And yes, I still
it's hard
checks.
not. It's easier to not screw it up now online. I feel like because I'm not writing that much by hand, like where I'm not, as opposed to when I was in school or something like that.
But, I'm solid with that.
Yeah, we get it better each day. Here's a terrible question, but I'm going to ask it because I feel like maybe you should intervene with this guy.
Feel good about yourself when you watch our shows. Here's a shit question from a bad, stupid person.
Can you rank 1, 2, 3 these punt level drop lowest score guys in FanDuel Cash? Miles Bridges, Chandler Hutchinson, and Jared Blossomgame. To me, I just don't think you should be playing those guys when you have that much value that's actually you can bank on the slate. But you tell me, Eddie, what do you think about Bridges, Hutchinson, and Blossomgame?
I was going to say Bridges in a landslide, and then I realized it's the other Bridges. Yeah, I'm going to go with Bridges there still. Yeah, I'm still going to go with Bridges there as a combination of the better matchup of the three, and especially with the FanDuel scoring. I don't find either of them to be incredibly out of play. I think someone's just literally going for minimum dollars at small forward. I think is where you get all three of those guys. I'm going to confirm my suspicion here real quick. I don't think you play Abdul Nader, even if he randomly gets a start there or something. Hutchison isn't good even when he gets time, and he's not even getting time now. They've got him reduced back to the mid 30s, and with all hands on deck, they're doing worse. So, none of those guys, players I really want to run out there, but I think there's a chance you get over 20 minutes now with Bridges. So probably Bridges for me. Although if your only criteria is a minimum price there, I probably play Solomon Hill over Bridges, and if you can give me $200 extra, I certainly play Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and if you can't and can give me $100 extra, I would play Jared Dudley. So just some extra information you didn't ask for there, but
that's extra information always helpful, I'm sure, for the people out there. So
I don't know about always helpful, but hopefully helpful.
Yeah, maybe slightly, only slightly helpful. Also, Osmo's rankings were updated within the last 5 minutes or so. I see some people asking about that. They do note, by the way, on the page when they are updated. It does say when they were most recently updated, so that could be helpful for some people out there. Got some either ors building up fast. Ball, Jones, or Satoransky for a FanDuel GPP?
Ball, Jones, or Satoransky?
Yep.
Ball. Like, I can see doing Satoransky. I'm not doing Tyus in that matchup at that price. Like, you could have him out. I mean, Lonzo Ball does have a very real floor and is going against what can be an elite defense, and Tyus Jones can hit an upside and is a great steals guy, and it can work out that way, but I'm just going to play Lonzo Ball as the best player of those three, and I project for the highest, and won't have that much ownership anyway. So Lonzo for me there.
Rank these three: Julius Randle, Kyle Kuzma, and Collins from Atlanta.
I love all three of those guys, but Randall, Collins, and who is the third?
And Kuzma.
Yeah. Just raw points. I have to go barely Randall, Collins, and then a reasonable 4 or 5 point drop off for Kuzma. So if they were all the same price, I would play Randall, Collins, and Kuzma. Though most places there is a pricing differential about there. I think Randall may still be cheaper than Collins on DK, and I still do like him a little bit more than that. I will try to confirm that real quick. I can just put in their names here. Yeah, you have Randall at 8, and I think Collins is 8-2. So I do like him the most there. But Kuzma, especially on FanDuel, is still too cheap, and 7,500 on DK, even though the matchup isn't the greatest. Especially with LeBron out there, I expect him to get extra time and see, getting towards that 40-minute mark again. He's got 40 minutes or more his last 3 games. And 48, 40, and 39 fantasy points. Last game he shot 5 of 17 and still gave you 39 fantasy points. Like, he's just getting time and getting usage sans LeBron. So all 3 of those guys are great players, but I will put Randall just a hair above Collins, and then a few points down to get to Kuzma. So it is price dependent by site, but just raw points, that's how I'd rank him.
Kuzma's one of Osmo's highest rated ranked guys in his most recent update, which I thought was interesting. I think one of only 2 guys with an A and an A for whatever that's worth. You guys get
I don't blame him whatsoever. I mean, he is very solid. Again, I think each of those other guys have a slightly higher upside. I think getting 60 out of Kuzma would surprise me more than getting 60 out of, say, Collins or Randall tonight. So for that reason, in tournaments, I draw a slight differentiation there, but he's certainly not a bad play by any means.
Yeah, I agree. I've been very much on Kuzma. I think I like him more, though, when it's just Ingram out. I feel like there's just too many guys trying. Like, it's like Lord of the Flies out there with them fighting for scraps with LeBron out. You get to see random big shooting days from Caldwell Pope and Josh Hart's shooting again. It's like I don't like the way that.
Yeah, I mean, Hart's price came up, but he was I was on vacation for it, but I was like, God, Hart's gonna be the windmill slam of this team. With everything going on with Braun going out there, and his price came up, unfortunately. But yeah, minimum price there was pretty exciting.
We got some either ors to burn through in the premium Slack. And people on YouTube, we will get to you guys, but premium Slack has first dibs because they actually pay money. That's just that's called capitalism, I think, is what it is. But so support the brand and sign up, or get a free account for promo code Live Before Lock, and you get your questions answered first. But when we have a big backlog on Slack, unfortunately, they do get first priority. Simmons or Embiid to do better relative to their prices. No site given though.
Well, that's hard without their prices.
Yes.
But again, now I would have Joel Embiid at about 60.5 fantasy points, and I would have Ben Simmons a hair under 50. So I'm looking at about 12 better fantasy points for Embiid, although even the scoring would not be consistent by site because, Simmons is going to get more on sites that have triple-doubles and cost you less for turnovers, which he's more inclined to than Embiid. So it's a really tough question to answer without the site given. I'm slightly more excited about playing Embiid between those two guys, but they're both very strong plays at this point.
Monk or Graham on DK?
Graham.
Schroeder or Redick for a FanDuel GPP?
I'll go with Redick now. Schroeder would have, and I certainly don't mind playing Schroeder at this point against the Lakers, but I will go with Redick at this point.
Let's see. DK Cash, would you go Westbrook or AD if you have Randall already?
I'd still go AD.
Is Tice the worst GPP play on FanDuel? That's a pretty broad swath.
Someone asked me, what do you think about Tice on FanDuel just before, so I think someone is following up with their own commentary in the form of a question there. He is 3,600. I think you are sort of betting the blowout at that point, but he is not a good play at this point. You're obviously probably going to get some mid-teens minutes again with the minutes limit on Horford, but I think on FanDuel he's fine. Okay, on DK or Yahoo, I hate that play. On FanDuel, he carries a decent upside, and he can be dropped. Okay, you're hoping for the blowout, in which case you might get 20, 21 minutes of him instead of 12, 14, 16. But no, he's not the worst play. He's just fine. I imagine there are cheap power forwards I would prefer, but no, he's just fine.
Also, news just came through 2 minutes ago. Jared Dudley officially starting for Rondé Hollis-Jefferson. Yep. Does that affect anything at all for you?
Nope, don't play Jared Dudley. Look, whenever you play one of these guys, I'm sorry, you can play him on FanDuel where it is droppable. But even there, I'm going to like other guys usually more because Jared Dudley is just not an upside guy. Whenever I play one of those $3,500, $3,700 guys, I want a chance they give me 35 or 40. That chance is very, very small with Dudley. Now, the matchup is ideal. It's not zero, so I wouldn't despise the play on FanDuel, but I would, again, he's more expensive. We're looking at like $800 more probably, but I mentioned Etuan Moore because I think Etuan Moore has a very real chance of getting me 40 in this matchup. So, that does not change a lot for me, and that's who I expected to start. So, yeah. Makes me a little less excited about Damari Carroll, who had some chance of catching a start, which would have raised my minutes approval for him by a few.
Probably makes it a little easier to deal with not having Carroll if he is a chalky play like we currently project, though.
Sure.
Hayward and Graham or a Kogi and Sato for a DK GPP?
Kogi and Sato is chalkier and better raw points projection, so it depends really what you're trying to do. The first of those two pairings would be lower owned, so it really depends on how contrarian you're trying to be. You're going to have much lower ownership on anything including, say, Hayward in it, who probably is going to fail for you, but again, does carry enough of an upside. So it's really sort of a personal choice. I do think the bifurcation between ownership and expected production is about right there where you could go either side.
Any thoughts on DJ Augustine for DK GPPs? He came up for me a decent amount, so I have a good swath of him. Not a lot, though. Not a crazy amount, rather. How are you feeling about DJ?
They've been, where his price is now still $4,300, and he's going to play again today, and then they'd started to, minutes load him quite a bit more. A couple games ago, they knocked him back down to 25, I want to say, but that was when they got crushed by Toronto. The two surrounding games, which were competitive for them, he played 37 and 40 minutes or something like that. So if you think that's any sort of expectancy, I think he's just fine for tournaments. Now, he's got, I believe, an ankle injury, which, would be a minor concern if I was doing that. There's tons of other good guard value. And the matchup with Chicago is A, not great for pace, and B, not even that great of a matchup anymore with Chris Dunn back out there, who's actually a competent defender, which I know is a weird thing in Chicago. But, so I think he's fine because the ownership is going to be low, feel free, but it isn't like an ideal Augustine spot. But if you think, and I think there's a very good chance he plays 38 minutes again tonight and the ownership is 6% as opposed to some of these other guys at 26%, I would endorse an Augustine play.
McConnell and Monk or Graham and Korkmaz for cash?
I guess Graham and Korkmaz. Though I'm not excited about McConnell or Korkmaz in cash at this point, but I'll slightly go with the second one of those if I must.
Related question from our guy Makad. With the Korkmaz news not coming out yet, are you leaning towards playing more of him now or not?
Yes, with no news, I do expect he randomly gets the start there. That seems to be the most likely thing. It'll be either him or Shamit. Again, I'm not super excited. If I had 150 lineups, I would try to get Korkmaz in 5 or 6 of them, because he's a guy who's shown a big ceiling. It's Phoenix, and they can certainly give a ceiling game to anyone. But I'm not, there's lots of really good value out there. So I don't just need a decent game out of Korkmaz. I need stupid game. And he, again, like twice during the regular season and once during the summer league, has just gone out and put up stupid game where he makes 7 threes, etc. So I don't have a problem getting it in there, but there is enough of a floor and enough concern about exactly what's going to come out of him that I'm not, killing myself if I can't make it happen.
Yeah, and Phoenix does close out on 3-point shooters pretty well, which I do feel like would give me, if we're doing for a tiebreaker, I think that would be one that might put me off.
Actually, now that you mention it, that's true.
Raboshua asking, I'm getting a fair amount of Theo Pinson for a FanDuel GPP. How comfortable are we with him? He is a Nets player for people out there who do not know.
I know who he is.
I know you did, but I know that
he's. I mean, they gave him, I want to say, 28 minutes last game, which was certainly nice to see. Did not have a ton of usage in that game. I think he took 8 shots, I want to say, as opposed to most of the other guys who played similar minutes took 10 or 12. There's a lot of great value today, so I'm in general disinclined towards running, Theo in my life, but I don't think it is the worst idea I've ever heard. So if you end up playing, Theo, I think that's fine. But like a lot of it seems a little bit too cute. It is a fine matchup, and maybe it works out. But again, not a super high fantasy play. Again, I will not lie and pretend I have a massive amount of experience with Theo Pinson. But based on my somewhat sketchy recollection of the situation, not a guy I expect to score a ton or set the world on fire. So, I wouldn't have a problem if you had 10% Pinson in something, but, you mentioned having a lot of exposure. That would make me uncomfortable.
For our guy Austin, who's literally panicking for the answer to this question, Bembry and AD or Embiid and Redick for DK cash?
Cash? I'd play Bembry and Embiid. I'd play Bembry and AD, pardon me.
Let's see. Tyus Jones and Ariza or Bryant and Adams for DK GPP?
Bryant and Adams. So we didn't mention, by the way, Steven Adams in a fine spot. I like Steven Adams quite a bit. I slightly prefer DeAndre Jordan, who's also way underpriced at $67, $65, and $24. Those numbers are all lower than I would expect for him against a Hernan Gomez-led center team in Charlotte. Like this, I project him for about 18.5 rebounds tonight. So I like getting some exposure to DeAndre Jordan as well. But Steven Adams in a fine spot. So the Adams side of that particular query.
Carroll, Kuzma, and Bryant, or Paul George, Dario Saric, and Sweet Dick Willie on FanDuel cash?
The first one, Carroll, Kuzma, and Bryant.
Rank the Wizards on DK. Oh, boy. Satoransky, Bryant, Beal, Ariza, Green, Porter.
Really? That was the best question you could come up with? Rank a whole team? Rank a whole team on DK. All right, I like a challenge. We'll give this a spot. So, Also, by the way, you did not give me criteria for ranking things. Like, people do this all the time. They say, who's the best basketball player ever? Well, what's your criteria? On their best day over the course of their career, importance to the sport? And, I think Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player ever. He was absolutely not the best baseball player ever. I think LeBron James is the best basketball player ever, but Michael Jordan's probably the greatest. So, rank them by what criteria? But, okay, sure. We'll just go here with how much generally I like them, counting their ownership and everything else in a tournament. So I will say Beal, Sato, Bryant, Ariza, Beal, Sato, Bryant, Ariza, I guess Porter I'm now down to at this point. Sure, we'll go with that. God help us. Then Jeff Green, who I think gets chopped back down to mid to high 20s in minutes tonight. So there they are, 1 through 6. You bastard.
Is it possibly a sneaky Tristan Thompson night?
No, I don't think they're going to necessarily give him enough time there. I don't know if they've specifically confirmed that yet, but I would be surprised if they randomly bust out a ton of time. Now, I will say, last game they played the Heat on, I want to say, the 28th of last month, so all 5 days ago. And they were so concerned with finding another way to screw Larry Nance Jr. that they started Channing Frye in that goddamn game because of the matchup with Whites. I don't even know what they thought he was going to do against Hassan Whiteside. He can't rebound or do shit. But, they're certainly, this is a spot you'd expect him to see a lot of time. But I don't think his price got cheap enough anywhere. If he was under, say, $6,000, I would have some interest in Tristan Thompson. I don't believe he is.
Booker, Brow, and Graham, or Beal, Paul George, and Tyus Jones on DK?
Booker, Brow, and Graham.
Getting close to the wire here. Graham, George, and AD, or Booker, Kuzma, Simmons?
Graham, George, and AD.
Tyus Jones and Ariza, or Bryant and Adams? I think we might have done that, did we? I don't know.
Bryant and Adams.
Russell or Jordan, more raw points on DK?
I'll take Jordan, but close.
Is Elf worth a GPP punt on DK?
Who?
Alfred Payton.
No, I still think he's going to be in the mid-20s in minutes. That's a bit much to ask there.
This is not going to get on time.
We're locked.
Graham, George, AD, or Booker, Kuzma. Wait, no, fuck, we got that one. Guys, if you post the questions multiple times, it only confuses the process more. So
we're locked anyway.
Yeah, if people send the same question 5 times, I see it 5 times in order of when they're received. So that does not help anybody. Be a team player, everybody. But we're locked. So now we'll do a little bit of live daddy likes, not the estimated daddy likes.
Oh, actual things.
Yeah, now it's prime time here. We're in the post show, so now we gotta bring it for real.
All right, let's see what we got on DK. There's $500,000 tonight for the Wednesday shoot around, which
actually while you pull that up,
sure.
Can we get Eddie's thoughts on the passing of Mean Gene and Marty Funkhauser / Bob Einstein / Super Dave?
Yeah, Super Dave Osborne, Bob Einstein, underrated in Ocean's 12. No, he's I have much less experience than him with Mean Gene. Again, I did some work for WWE for a couple of years and have a lot of friends who are still wrestlers and occasionally climbed in the ring myself. So, Mean Gene was part of the voice of the 80s. And really, there's, if you somehow could measure sort of like a Q rating question, the voice of someone heard by the most people on the planet Earth between, say, the years 1980 and 1990, he'd have been like the top 5. Like, it would have been something ridiculous like Reagan, Thatcher, Mean Gene. Like, he was really sort of a pervasive part of our pop culture back then. And again, a guy who came into the industry after 25 years of being, I don't remember his day job, but an insurance salesman or something, and then turned into, part of that whole era that put professional wrestling on the map alongside, people he's inexorably linked with, like Hulk Hogan, etc. So, obviously, rest in peace to both them. Best wishes to their families in this trying time. And, I met Mean Gene exactly one time. And said hi, and he said hi, so he didn't spit on me, so I'm sure he was the nicest man ever. But so a lot of respect for one of the top few guys on the stick. He was.
I too worked at WWE in the publicity department. We've talked about this on one of the shows in the past, I believe. And one of Mean Gene, a legendary drinker and a beloved guy for that fact internally at WWE. I do recall that pretty vividly, that he was one of the, I want to say more infamous, but he was one of the more beloved drunks of the, which every wrestler or personality in the 80s was. I think the fact that he got an ESPN headline like link about him kind of shows the indelible impact he had. And also, I'm sad about Super Dave. Marty Funkhauser might be one of my favorite TV characters on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah. So I'm sad that Bob Einstein's gone. One of the genuinely funny guys.
He looked good for his age. He was 76.
Yeah. They were the same age.
Dude, I know. Ridiculous. The dude was 76. He looked like he was late 50s. Like, I don't know who was making him up, but give me that guy.
Yeah, unreal. But yeah, so two tough losses. Two like very, I mean, I want to say esoteric because they both were pretty mainstream guys, but two losses, which I was like, oh, that sucks. I like both those guys.
Yeah. Feeling you.
All right, let's go. Give me your daddy likes.
Here we go. Number one, squeaking out in the battle of the cheap centers. Thomas Bryant actually gets on top, 49.01%. Again, that's about where that should be. Daddy has no strong opinion. Daddy isn't real choosy. He'll put his hands around any big, muscly armed man he can get. So I'm fine with it. But 49% clearly, if you got away, it wouldn't hurt. Guillermo Hernan Gomez, 48.87%. So 1/7% coming in. Under. Would be more inclined to get away from that one, as I said before. Again, have talked about those two guys in excess. Beal got all the way up to 43.45%. So this, again, in the largest of the tournaments on DK. And that, again, is closer to the right number there, but he would still be my favorite of those three at that number. Really hard for that not to work out. Satoransky, 32.23%. Again, have discussed at length. That's about the right number. Devontae Graham, 19.72%. Again, that's about the right number. Trevor Ariza, 15.24. That feels good. Daddy likes that. I wouldn't mind getting on top of that. This Sans John Wall on the Wizards, where he was always going to be a more relevant quantity and a team a little more focused on winning now. And with all the guaranteed extra minutes, the price has come up, but still sub 6K on DK. So Trevor Ariza made a lot of sense. Malik Monk, 15.21%. Yeah, Daddy doesn't like that. Maybe I'll see something else today. Maybe he will get a ton of extra time here, but I still have him getting 22 minutes. There's a chance he closes and Graham doesn't. I don't think that happens. There's a chance they both close because, Hernan Gomez isn't getting the job done, and they just go super small at the end, and they close with, both those guys. And, MKG at the 5 and Kemba, etc. But 15% on a guy where we have no proven reason to think that he's going to get super extra time. I'll go with I don't like Malik Monk. Jeff Green, 11.3%. That's fine because, again, he's still really cheap on DK. And the matchup, again, as good as it's going to get. We don't know what his effect will be with limited minutes Otto Porter coming back. But I'm fine with that. Kemba Walker, 10%. Sure. Obviously super expensive, not a guy we talked about specifically, but that's about the right ownership on him. Luka Doncic, 8.84. I'm going to like him basically every day at 8%. I can't recall his exact price right now. I think he was back a hair under 8K on DK. So hasn't shown to be monster upside guy, but in decent matchups can put up a 50 burger, and this is certainly that. John Collins, 8.64%. I absolutely love that. DeAndre Jordan, 8.4%. I love that. Trae Young at 6.8% feels about right. Again, his price on DK has always been a little more manageable, and not getting tagged with the full point turnovers like FanDuel certainly helps. Justice Winslow, 5.86%. Yeah, I mean, at that price, I'll like it a lot. Again, he did just put up 50 against the Cavs, 5 days ago or what have you. And even though he'd been basically playing point guard, is now sort of minted as the starting point guard and has started to actually fulfill that role. It's not just a nom de guerre for him at this point. He's actually, handling the ball a little more than Josh Richardson versus, say, a month ago with Dragic still out. Jeremy Lin, 5%. Daddy likes that a lot at his price. DeAndre Bembry, 5%. Daddy likes that a lot at his price. Marvin Williams, 4%. I like that at his price. That's certainly, a chance you end up seeing more time for him at the 5. And one of several really nice leverage plays over Hernan Gomez if you were going to have him. Dedmon at 3.5%. I love. That's a wonderful, wonderful play. I'm a huge fan of that at that number. Huerter, 3.5 is fine. Again, not a guy who shows a lot of upside, Burks at 2.8. Sure, if you're going for a piece of that game, that made sense where he was like 4.3. I think it was 13 on DK. It's just going to be interesting how they go with now Tristan is back and Rodney Hood was questionable. He's going to play, and Pat McCaw is available to make his roster debut. So I think, the 35 to 40 minute Alec Burks we had been seeing is gone. But still 2.8%. That's a nice number. James Johnson, I mentioned specifically 2.4%. Daddy likes that a lot at that number. Larry Nance, 2.3. I think obviously imperiled with all the guys coming back there. So probably wouldn't go there. Daniel Hamilton, 2.25. Starting is nice, but he got like 10 minutes last game or some really small number. Hassan Whiteside, 1.9%. All right, Daddy likes that. Like, he's still 6.8 or whatever the hell the price is on DK and might only get 18 minutes and probably doesn't get more than 24-25. But he can put up 50 fantasy points against the Cavs in 24-25 minutes. So 2%, I like that. Wesley Matthews, 1.8%. Yeah, I like that a lot. $4,100. That could work out. Dennis Smith, 1.71. I like that. Jay Rich, 1.55. Sure, at that number. Jordan Clarkson, 1.36. Rodney Magruder, 1.08. Otto Porter, 1.02. MKG, 0.99. Daddy likes that. Frank Kaminsky, 0.97. Daddy likes that. Alex Len, 0.97. Okay. JJ Barea, 0.6. Bam Adebayo, 0.6. Daddy likes that. Tyler Johnson, 0.59. Colin Sexton, 0.54. Kelly O, 0.47. Tristan Thompson, 0.44. There it is. Sam Decker, 0.36. Derek Jones Jr., 0.34. Vince Carter, 0.33. DFS, 0.31. Tony Parker, 0.28. Daddy likes. And certainly I like him more than a 60 times as owned Malik Monk. Rodney Hood, 0.21. Miles Bridges, 0.15. There he is. Just over Jaron Blossom game, 0.13. So the public also agreed. Right there.
What a great either or that was. One
Bridges
of the best
over Blossom game. Dwayne Wade, 0.13. Not sure if he's even playing, but could. And it's looked good recently. Chesson Randall, 0.13. Woo. Deion Waiters, 0.09. Will make his debut. Wayne Ellington, 0.09. Maxi Kleba, 0.06. Dwight Powell, 0.05. Bismack Biyombo, 0.04. J.R. Smith, 0.04. Dirk, 0.04. Troy Brown, 0.04. Della Vadova, 0.03. Jan Mahinmi, 0.03. Channing Frye, 0.03. Spellman, 0.02. I'm not sure he's available, but we're going to keep going because I don't know offhand. Devin Harris, 0.02. Devin...
Wait, J.R. Smith didn't count as the one?
Oh, there you go. You're right. I don't know what I was thinking. J.R. Smith,
like,
0.04.
You kept going. I thought you were excited for somebody else at the bottom there.
No. J.R. Smith, 0.04. You played yourself. Dwight Howard also with a single vote, rounding down to .00, but makes the list. You really played yourself.
So while you were doing that, Wilson Chandler got ruled out, and Joel Embiid is now questionable. How does that affect your prospects for the Sixers?
Wow. Dick move. I guess obviously some concern for Embiid. You now have Muscala as a pretty strong play regardless because he's going to get some time, extra time at the 4 with Chandler out and potentially lots of extra time at the 5 with Embiid not playing, in theory. And Simmons becomes, even more credible. And certainly then even you feel a little better about guys like, feel better about Furkan over, say, Shamet and McConnell because he can play down lower, and now without Chandler, he's a little bit more interesting. And so that whole team, and it's a little more likely this game stays close now. So Muscala immediately comes to mind, but you like Furkan a little bit more now, and even hedge plays on guys like McConnell and Shamet have some extra room to grow. So yeah,
maybe a little Jonah Bolden too with Chandler.
Yeah, Jonah Bolden too.
He can play big. He's a scary guy. Yeah. Scary Australian. All right, there we go. That's everything we needed to hit. So thank you guys for tuning in. Eddie, anything you want to hit on before we wrap this up?
No, I'm all set. Looking great to be back. I think I'm back again tomorrow, although I do think it's a perilously short slate. But back tomorrow, and glad to be back in the saddle.
Yeah, so we're glad to have you back, Eddie. It's for as much as I'm happy for you, and everybody deserves their vacation time like I took last week too. It's nice having a flow, nice rhythm here without having to guess who we're going to be doing shows with. So good to have Eddie back. And thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you use the promo code Live Before Lock. Now you can use it for the late game slates, of course, which we have ownership projections for and rankings as well. So check that out. Promo code Live Before Lock on awesemo.com will get you access to everything you need. And Eddie will be back tomorrow with Josh. I'll be back with Eddie on Friday. So go keep your eyes peeled here. Subscribe to the channel, like all the videos, watch everything. Consume. It's a new year. Get good at DFS by watching everything. And we'll be back with you soon. Good luck.
Eh,